And we are back, and it is time for the Else Views. This is the segment where we talk about the shows that we, um, or books that we have read. You know, the things that we've been enjoying over the past 2 weeks. Um, Corey, let's start with you because I have no idea what the Void is.
Okay, so Comcast has been on their on-demand. They sometimes will give you the chance to watch movies that are still out in the theater or are just coming out in the theater. My wife watched a preview for this movie last week, and we decided to check it out. It's called The Void. It is a horror movie, so I'm not going to go too much into this because we might wind up doing it on Podcast of Terror at some point. But it's got some very 80s aesthetic kind of choices made in it. One is the usage of practical effects, which is highly in place in there. Two is the kind of like at the end things come together in such a way that it goes into more of that 80s style green screenish type of look. And it's kind of evocative of how they were doing the Thor trailer, how they try to bring some of the 80s feel into it, even though it's a modern film. It has a lot of not necessarily connections, but it's reminiscent of things like the Hellraiser series by Clive Barker. Also by Clive Barker is Nightbreed. I see a lot of the Cabal kind of stuff into it. And to me, very evocative of Prince of Darkness, which is a John Carpenter movie from the 80s. Mm-hmm. It's just really pretty freaking cool. And I don't want to say a lot about it because there's a lot that could be spoiled. But it starts out with people getting killed in a house, and then a cop finds one of them who managed to get away and takes him to the local hospital. And then people in the hospital start going crazy, and all of these sort of cult style people start showing up around the hospital. They're all wearing white hooded outfits with these sort of like weird painted symbols on their faces and everything, and they're just standing there. They're not even necessarily coming in to attack. They're just kind of like standing there witnessing stuff. And it just goes nuttier from there. It was, I think all in all, probably one of the strongest horror movies that I've seen in a while. And certainly that came out of nowhere. And one of those things that I argue about is, are people willing to do stuff that are original ideas anymore? And this was an original idea that has, yes, throwback feels to it, but it still stands out because they weren't just emulating something else. They weren't just copying something else. It's not the new Chucky movie. It's not the new Nightmare on Elm Street or anything like that. It was something all on its own, and I could definitely see it continuing and becoming a franchise on its own. And that's really exciting to me right now. Is that while I don't necessarily need it to be a franchise, it would make sense for it to have a sequel because there's so much stuff that's left unexplained at the end, but it still gives you a very satisfying ending at the same time. I didn't really recognize anybody in it except for the girl who played Knives in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. She plays a assistant nurse in this. But yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity to go see this in the theater right now, you definitely should support this film because it's one of those things that I think people are going to pick up more on later and want to see more from these guys, and they deserve every bit of success that they get. Or if you have the chance to just watch it on demand like we did, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do because it's still going to pay the creators of the movie, and it'll just show that there's interest out there, which I think is incredibly important at this point in time. So yeah, I'm sorry to bring a horror movie to ElseNerds. I'm kind of cross-pollinating here, but what's funny is that
it's okay. It's okay. I didn't bring a horror movie last time to Podcast of Terror, so we're good.
That's true. You didn't. What's funny is also one of the guys who worked on this, Jeremy Gillespie, who's one of the writers and I think producers of it, worked on Suicide Squad.
Nice.
Which I kind of see some of the aesthetics for it. Both of them did, actually. They both worked on Suicide Squad. And they're working on It.
Nice.
And for Beatmaster, they worked on Hannibal, the TV series.
So this does look interesting to me, even though I'm not a big horror movie fan.
And it is like there's no question that this is a horror movie.
Yeah,
This is definitely that. This is one of those things that we have the people sometimes who guest host on our show who aren't really horror fans. This is a horror film, but it's really well done, very compelling story, very interesting, and the aesthetics were pretty incredible.
yeah. The only person I'm recognizing from anything is Ellen Wong, um, who played Knives.
Yep, that's exact.
But yeah,
She's the only one that I really knew.
yeah, I'm on the IMDb page, and
it's not to say that nobody else has been in anything else. I mean, the lead woman in this was on the Haven TV series, Alphas. She had a recurring role on CSI New York and things. It's just that I did not recognize them from anything else. And overall, they all did a bang up job in this.
yeah. So before I get to my pick, I'm sorry, but I have a quick pick because I found that it's on Netflix. It's been for the longest time on the UK Netflix and has now come to American Netflix that I think a lot of people need to watch. Just because this is classic comedy, and that's Faulty Towers.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I just happened to see it one day. I'm like, ooh, watch the pilot, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get through this. It's only 12 episodes. That's it. Like 6 episodes for 2 seasons or 2 series, as they say over in England. So yeah, check that out. It's on Netflix. It's probably on Netflix worldwide now. Which actually I think this is a steal from CISO, because I think it was on CISO for a little bit, and might still be. But that's not the show I'm going to get in depth on. The show I'm going to get in depth on is Brockmire. Now, this is the show that is based on the characters that Hank Azaria has created. Now, Hank Azaria, you might recognize the name because he's the guy he's the lead guy on here, but also he's voices a good third of the characters on The Simpsons.
He also used to be on Herman's Head, and he did a show on Showtime. Was it Hutch or something that had? It was kind of like it was kind of ahead of its time when he did it, and it was him and the guy who played Chekhov in the recent Star Trek movies. Yeah, and oh god, I watched it for a little while. It was really weird. Huff. It also had God damn it, Paget Brewster was his wife in it. And it's one of those things that, and Oliver Platt, because Oliver Platt is probably why I started watching it in the first place. It's one of those things that it was back before cable series like this were really taking off. It was in 2004. So maybe HBO was getting somewhere with The Sopranos and a couple of things here and there, but it was still kind of new for Showtime and HBO to have series that were like everybody was like hooked on. But it's one of those things that I was just like, wow, I can't believe this role for Hank Azaria and this role for Paget Brewster and Anthony Elchin was like a kid in this. So it's really interesting to see him be that young and just sort of growing into what he's playing.
Yeah. So Wikipedia actually has some of the in-depth stuff on this, but Hank Azaria created Jim Brockmire for the web series for in the third episode of Funny or Die's web series, Game Changers, which the episode titled "A Legend in the Booth." And basically it goes on to explain it, but it came to IFC. They ordered the comedy, and the show was written by Joel Church Cooper and directed by Tim Kirkby. Sorry. And the cast is really small. I mean, there's really only 3 regular cast members. You got Hank Azaria playing Jim Brockmire, Amanda Peet plays Jules, and Tyrell Jackson Williams plays Charles. And the basic premise is Jim Brockmire used to be a big league baseball announcer. Like your Joe Buck or someone like that. And he has a breakdown because he catches his wife cheating on him. And so over national TV, he just has a meltdown. And this was back in 2007 in this world that they've created. And so now it is 2017, or no, it was earlier than that. I want to say it was like 2005. But and you go to, you fast forward to now, he's Jim Brockmire's done all sorts of different things, and he's come back to a baseball team in a small town in Pennsylvania called the Frackers to be their PA announcer. Everyone Amanda Peet plays the owner, and then Tyrell Jackson Williams, Charles, plays he's like the intern, the new media intern on there. And this show is so freaking hilarious. Just in how they're, how everything is going along with this. I mean, to hear, like, it wouldn't be surprised if this was like a partially scripted show, to where you have like when he's doing the play-by-play calls, he's improvising a lot of that stuff. It's so smooth, so there are moments where you cringe a little bit at this man and this town. It's the Morristown Frackers is the name of the minor league baseball team that he is here with. It's IFC, so it is really short episodes. There's only 8 episodes, which is so good because there's no fluff. There's not room for fluff in here, so there's not going to be any, fluffy episodes that aren't needed. And it's already been renewed for season 2 that will air next year. So have you seen Brockmire?
No, I haven't.
Again, I really do highly recommend it. It's not one of those things where you need to know sports, because all the teams are made up. It's mainly focusing on minor leagues. The second episode probably right now is my favorite. The first episode is called Rally Cap, that basically is just setting up. It's a typical pilot, but the second episode's a winning streak. It hits on the superstition of baseball, in that, oh well, if your team won and you did this, and this, well, the next game you got to do this, and this, which includes Jim Brockmire and Jules having sex, and them getting so busy because she's also the bartender in town, in this dying town. I mean, it is a dying town. But there's a part in there where you got a little girl out on the field singing the national anthem. They're starting to draw a crowd in because the team's winning, and they're doing a quickie. They're getting a quickie up in the announce booth. So before the game starts, they got up and they hit the intercom, so you hear them moaning and all that while they're singing. And I mean, it's been really funny throughout the first 3 episodes. And I cannot recommend it enough. Like I said, you do not need to be a baseball fan to.
And this is on IFC?
Yes.
Although in both these cases, Brockmire and The Void, you can click the links that we'll have in the show notes and be able to watch these through the Amazon system. And then it's an affiliate link, so it'll give a little bit to the network as well.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely check it out. It airs on Wednesdays on IFC, Wednesdays at 10, I believe. But yeah, it's so charming. And I mean, also watching the first episode and then seeing the sponsors, they had Sam Adams as one of the sponsors, and they actually did a special advertisement with Jim Brockmire doing the ad. And I'm like, okay, this is actually fitting. And then in the second episode, because they aired the first two back to back, they had KY as an announcer. And I'm like, yep, great, just nailing the advertising for this.
And something's getting nailed.
And it was Amanda Pete's character. But yeah, I mean, so that's it. That I got, and we don't have an ElseWords, so I guess we're gonna wrap it up. Which I hope
Let's
Jim
do it.
Brockmire did in episode 2.
Whoa.
Haha.